Hello, everyone. Hi, LaDonna.
Hey,
How's it going?
Crystal.
We're back.
How's it going?
What? I don't know what's going on, LaDonna. We were going to do a different webinar. We were going to do one on data, the data case for DEI, diversity and inclusion, and at the intersection of wellness. You're the wellness expert. And so we were going to do the data case, but lately it does not seem like data is going to be a great argument for making sure DEI stays in your organization. It seems like you're in or you're out. So we decided to change it. But first, let's get to introductions before we get to the webinar content itself. LaDonna, who are you?
Well, I'm LaDonna Welch. I am the founder of Ebony Notes. Ebony Notes is not only an affirmation app that supports mental health in the Black community, but we also have a ton of stationery, and we're in the process of building a safe space community. I am an educator. I have been teaching for the past 17 years, as well as a wellness coach. I mean, in my private life, I have two feisty teenagers, and my husband is in the military. So I am a proud military spouse.
Yeah, and one of your kids is going to the Junior Olympics. Like, that's pretty amazing. I just want to shout that
Absolutely.
out for you
Right.
and your girl. You must be, you're just like, no big deal.
Right.
Uh,
Team USA. Yay, yay.
Well, I don't have any kids going to the Junior Olympics, but I will introduce myself anyway. I'm Crystal Egley. I am a DEI consultant, believe it or not. Still, we're hanging in there. I co-founded the Inclusive Guide, and I just started the DL Activist, which is an online community that we call a solutions-focused community for these difficult times, and people can come on there, collaborate, share resources on what they're doing, how they're staying DEI focused and doing all of the work that still needs to go on. Yeah, so why are we here? So we were going to do the data case for DEI, but the current political climate is creating unprecedented levels of uncertainty and anxiety. Like, I don't know about you, but it's just kind of bonkers. And we are going to talk about how that's part of a strategy and how to kind of stay out of that like spiraling mentality that I myself am pretty prone to. But it can be really hard to identify and address those personal anxieties. Like, how do you see them when they're just happening to you in real time? We'll talk about strategies for managing stress, cultivating self compassion, finding moments of peace, which seems impossible sometimes amidst the chaos, navigating uncertainty within organizations and communities. Like, some people out there, some people on this webinar watching this might not even know if they have a job tomorrow. They don't even know if they're on a list tomorrow. Like, stuff's going down. I almost swore already. Usually I save that for minute 15. But when you have that kind of uncertainty shaking your foundation, it's hard to like be productive at work. Like, that's not even some people's goal right now, to be productive at work. And I know a lot of organizations are actually understanding of that even. But how can you show up for your friends and your community? How do you adapt, find resilience, and continue to move forward? Finding meaning and purpose. Like, oh my God, again, when your stuff is all like shattering at the base and shaking at that foundation, how are you supposed to move forward with meaning and purpose? I don't know about any of you, but I have been open mouth crying myself to sleep sometimes. And it just seems like, well, how am I supposed to like do self-care? Like nobody self-cares about me. Like, it feels like just just empty. Like, how am I supposed to show up for others when I can't even show up for myself right now, you know? And we'll explore ways to channel our concerns into action. I feel like there's a lot of power in finding an action to do. And we're hoping as well that this lab is a safe and supportive space for open dialogue. A lot of people have been like kind of listening. I know sometimes I've showed up to spaces this week and I've just been listening to other people, and that can be really, really helpful as well. So I don't want to pressure anyone into talking, but if you do, just know that your speaking up can often help other people find like a similarity, and we're actually going to talk about the power of that. Like, sometimes just hearing someone else say a similar or parallel feeling might like help you feel less alone. So you are welcome to, raise your hand or let us know in the chat some of your thoughts. And again, this was donate what you can to come on to this webinar live, and we will be having like a fixed rate afterwards. So if you know anybody else that would benefit from watching this recording afterwards, we will post it in a few days for sale as well. And we just want to say thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, Becky said in the chat already that she loves DL activists. Thank you. All right, LaDonna, you want to go on and I hear you have some personal feelings about navigating uncertainty in your own life and your career and stuff as a teacher. Like that must be pretty kind of like scary too, because I know that there were executive orders about educators and I read it and it was like really scary. Like, what's going on with you? What's going on?
So what I've have gone, well, like what I've experienced in the past is not like exactly what's going on now, but like navigating that uncertainty. Look, I have to say that like that. I've experienced it. I have experienced like the not knowing what's next. Years ago, I was at a school it was a low performing school, and everyone was technically fired. Public school, public ed, they thought the state was coming to take over. So their strategy was to let everyone go and make everyone reapply, interview for their jobs. So just imagine, like I worked next door, I taught next door to a teacher who had like been there for like 20 years. Like she's not going anywhere. She's riding this out until it's time for retirement. And she even had to go through this. So it was a very stressful time. We had never heard of this before, so we didn't know what the process was going to be like. We didn't know if they were going to like automatically choose us. Like, are y'all going through the steps because someone is making you, or are you really going to like shake it up and sometime and in within this process we all had to interview. Some people was like, I'm fed up with this, why would they let me go? I'm gonna just go find me another school. And they really just went and found another school because everyone was just shaken up. It was uncertain. I was a new teacher at the time. I think this was like year 2 for me. And it had been people who were like there, had been there for forever. So like the dynamics, it was crazy, the morale went down. I know it's not the same as what's going on now, but it's just like we had to kind of stick together. We had to work on the things that we could control. Like there were things that we had to do to navigate that uncertain time. And so it was, I don't know, my emotions were all over the place. I didn't know what was next. It was crazy. Most of us ended up back there. And it seemed like it was like a scare tactic. So a lot of us were trying to get out of there really quickly. But Crystal, like, what about you? Have you ever been in a situation of uncertainty?
My gosh. Well, I was just thinking like COVID, like we all went through COVID and that was a really uncertain time. That was also really scary because we didn't know what COVID was or how it was transmitted. Like I would be going on walks and we didn't know if we could sit on a park bench or not, or like, you know, it was just really confusing. We didn't know when they started sending us home from work offices, like we didn't know what it was going to be like to work from home. We didn't really have those tools yet. It was just really confusing. And I don't know, no one knew what was going on. And it kind of echoes to now, where it's like we don't like the job security, things like that. Like, again, kind of going back to what you were saying, like people's like entire agencies are saying, like, you could all quit. And then everyone's like, there's no funding if you actually go on leave. Like, we're not going to fund paid leave. Like, it's just really confusing as to like what's happening. And for me as a DEI consultant, a lot of my peers in diversity, equity, inclusion work are literally going on lists. Like it's terrifying, right? Like what, like if it's just so scary. What are the lists for? What are they doing with them? Like, are they lists to harass people? Are like, what are the lists for? And it's very scary. with the executive orders coming out, they're so unclear. They're so vague. A lot of the stuff doesn't seem legal or thought out. And I think that's part of the point, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But right now, it's just really kind of scary for anybody, not even just people in DEI work, but like anybody that receives federal funding. And there's rumors going around, there's facts going around, there's subjective analysis going around, and it's just a lot. So one of the things I wanted to do is start immediately talking about some of the solutions. So I always say, like, I'm an external processor. So if anybody knows me, they know that when a thought comes in my head, I say it out loud. LaDonna, you've met me, right? um, Half the people on this webinar have met me. If a thought is in my head, you are hearing it within 10 seconds. I think the longest I've kept a thought in my head was about 6 hours. So the point is, whenever I talk, most of the time when I talk, I talk myself down. And a lot of people like misunderstand that. They might think I'm getting riled up, but I'm actually talking myself down, and it helps me to vent out loud. And then maybe like 1 out of 20 times, I start spiraling for the worse. But 19 out of 20 times, I talk myself down. But now, these days, like things are really shaking at that foundation, and I find myself at about 50-50. Half the time I talk myself down, and half the time I'm spiraling into despair. And so I can see this difference in my thought process, and I'm like able to observe it. Hashtag therapy. Hashtag everyone go. And if you can. But like I have the ability to kind of like observe my processes now, and I know that things are changing inside of me, and I know that my like stress response is coming a lot more immediately. But not a lot of people are aware of how to notice that, and I think you're going to talk about like that a little bit later. But once I've noticed this, that's when I know that I need to like be aware of starting to reach out to people. I am not as extroverted as people might guess. So I think a lot of people think like, oh, Crystal, you're a people person. You must just be on the phone with your friends all day. Texting a couple of them, sure. But like, I actually don't really share like a lot of the vulnerable stuff. A lot of the times people aren't even aware that I'm going through really hard times until after I've gotten to that other side. So when I start noticing this like stress response in myself these days, I know it's time to like reach out. And then the other thing that I've learned is once I do reach out, I need to let the support in. And that is really hard for me. So it's hard to notice what's happening. Kind of got that one down. B, know that that means that I need to like start reaching out. And then C, even the hardest thing of all is letting that support in. It's like a very difficult pyramid for me that just gets harder as I go. But folks like you, LaDonna, teach me like really great breathing exercises. And what I mean by letting it in is like, let's just take a breathing exercise, for example. You can teach me about it all day long, but if I don't do it, then nothing's going to happen. So I need to let that support in, whether or not it's a breathing exercise or letting someone buy me coffee or something like that. You have to let that support in, and that's kind of that final step. That's the hardest one for me. So yeah, how about what's the hardest step for you in all of that?
Are you talking to me or the audience?
Yes. Oh, good reminder. If anybody at any time wants to type something in the chat or chime in, again, you're welcome to say, hey, that's me too. I won't say your name. I'll just be like, hey, look, we've got some other people saying yes and to this. But LaDonna, you for now.
I feel like it's hard for me to I feel like if I'm reaching out to someone else, I know that life is lifing for everyone. So it's hard for me to put my burdens on someone else. So I kind of carry it all myself. And sometimes it comes out in like really weird ways. Like we've had a moment where I called you, I was like, I can't get out the car and I don't know what's going on and all the different things. But was pending, everything was pent up for so long that I just had to let it out because I am not the best at practicing what I preach and reaching out. But I do have those in my circle. Like I felt comfortable enough to call Crystal and have that moment. And I have a couple other people that I kind of lean on. So I'm holding things in a little less and less each time. But it's a work in progress. It is. It's just the work in progress. But with all of that being said, thinking about the current landscape and what is happening right now, because we're all watching the news, right? Before I hop into this question with you, Crystal, I just want to ask, like those who are here with us, can you just type one word in the chat? How are you feeling right now while we are watching everything happen around us? Like, what is that one word to describe how you're feeling? Because this morning, I just decided that maybe I don't need to watch the news every single morning when I'm getting ready. Um, because yeah, I don't, I don't know. So I'm just really curious to know, like, what is that one word to describe what you're feeling as we are all witnessing all of these things oh my goodness,
Oh my gosh, this is so heavy. LaDonna, read them.
overwhelming, hopeless. Say that for me.
Tyranny.
Tyranny.
Gosh.
Anxious. Oh, that's me right now. Very, very anxious.
My own contribution was overwhelmed as well. Oh my gosh.
It's everything for me. My word is heavy. Everything just feels so heavy to me, the way it's affecting everyone. So Crystal, like how are these recent developments that we are all witnessing affecting organizational dynamics, nonprofits, funding, broader implications for the community, like all the things? How is this affecting all the things?
This is so what everyone wrote in the chat: angry, hopeless, tyranny, anxious, overwhelmed. Like that just hit pretty hard in my chest when I read those. And that's being magnified by entire communities. It's being magnified by an entire school, your school, you know. Um, it's being magnified by workplaces, and it's just so much. But I just also want to validate that you're not alone. So these feelings, like look at them together, right? Like even if y'all don't know each other, there's it's a all of these are super valid. They are real and they are facts. Like these emotions are happening, and that's just one word, right? People didn't even write a sentence. But imagine if we had everybody write a paragraph or a page and then multiply that by like dozens or hundreds of people, and it's just so much. And I myself am a person who wants to draw her magical sword and fix things, right? Like, so whether or not it's like a stray dog on the side of the road or like systemic racism in an organization, like I'm a fixer, I'm a helper, I run towards the fire. And I imagine that I'm not the only one on this webinar who has that. And when these issues that come towards us, like the executive orders, there's one that just came out like an hour, or an announcement that came out like an hour before this webinar, that there's going to be an investigative panel to root out anti-Christian bias, which is like not a real thing. And it feels like the whole country has to pick a religion now or else face consequences. Like there's just so many things. I can't fix that. Like I can't fix it. I might be called into you know, a smaller organization, but there's usually only like one or two people holding up the DEI work and everybody else is on the same page. This is something like I can't fix. Like I just can't do it. Nobody individually can do it. But together we have so much collective power. We cannot let that feeling that we have as individuals translate to thinking it's the reality of what we are as a group. They are two very different things. How we feel as an individual and our collective power as a group are two very, very different things. So we need to be able to rely on coming together and thinking about what we can do. There are so many actions as individuals that we can do. So, for example, I want to take an eraser and erase the executive orders, but I can't do that, right? I can't, in my experience, I cannot right now have the capacity to organize a protest, right? I could attend one, but I don't have the capacity to organize one. I really want to, though, but I don't have that experience. And so, what I've been trying to focus on is what I can do. And I see a comment here that is we cannot give in to those feelings of hopelessness and anxiety either. That's what they want us to feel, and it leads to tyranny. So this person is also prioritizing joy and centeredness where they can. And I love that. That is something you can do. So to get us out of that place of despair of what we can't do and what is happening to other people, we have to focus on what we can do. And if we add all of those things up, we can change the world. We can do so many things. But if we give into those feelings, then we we'll just be right. We can't, but we have to focus on the things that we can do.
Absolutely. And with focusing on the things that we can do, the one thing we don't want these things to do is have that detrimental effect on our mental and emotional well being, right? So, just me currently, like, I am in real life going through all these different emotions because of all the things that are happening that we're all seeing happening right now. For instance, I want to stay informed, right? I want to know what's going on, but I'm also receiving emails at my school because I work with children. I work with pre-K through middle school kids that's telling us that, oh, ICE is allowed on the campus, and if you see them, it's business as usual. How can I received that email and I don't think I did a productive thing that day because I'm like in my mind, okay, so if they come in here, how can I, like, if there are kids in here with me, can I barricade my door? Like, what am I supposed to do? I cannot, with a clear conscience, being a decent human being, hand off someone else's kids to strangers, knowing that there are still families that haven't been reunited from the last time something like this happened. I can't. So, like, we have to not let these things impact our emotional and mental well-being, which they are doing that. So, I forgot what I was going with that.
It's
Oh,
because you're distracted from all the stress, LaDonna. But like
right.
happens, right? Like I can't even keep like two sentences together for half the day because my brain is working overtime. So like stuff like that exactly happens anyway.
Right. But my point was that the current events with us trying to keep up with it, and we see it on social media, we're probably going to find blogs to read. We see it on the news. All the different things are causing feelings of confusion and anxiety, and we have to figure out ways to overcome that or figure out ways that we can combat it because we do not want it to weigh that heavy on our mental and emotional well-being because then we won't be able to show up as ourselves to do the things that we can do.
Yeah, it is so hard, but also that is the point of tyranny and fascism. Okay. So they are doing this on purpose. This is the strategy. It's a strategy designed to keep us in these spirals and these loops. And so one of the biggest things we can do is fight back from being in those feedback loops, right? And so this is like classic, like 101. The latest book that I've read is On Tyranny. It is a 90-minute audiobook. So I give the audiobook timing as like a little bit of a framework. They read pretty slowly. Some people might be able to read it in less than 90 minutes. But it gives like this really excellent framework for the principles of tyranny based on examples from the past. And it's incredible how textbook this stuff is. And once you start learning, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the resources to learn about these things later in this webinar in more detail and give a book list as well. But one of the things to remember is first and foremost is they want you to feel like this. So do we want them to win in that? No. So they cannot win in this. And so one of the things about self-care that I must admit, and LaDonna has heard me say this, is I don't love it. I don't love self-care. Like, I don't love it. It's really hard for me. I could be spending that time caring for someone else, you know? But just like they say on an airplane, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you help somebody else put on their oxygen mask, right? And then something else I want to remind folks before we go on to some of LaDonna's specific strategies is you deserve to live the life that you dream for everybody else. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. You deserve to live the life that you dream for everybody else. Okay. And so what that means is sometimes I forget that while I am out there trying to fight battles so that other people can live these beautiful, uneventful lives where they go to the grocery store and they go to their job and they're not being harassed and they're just living their best life and they're going on a vacation, I deserve that too. Now, I don't know that internally, but I say it out loud and it sounds really nice. But I'm encouraging everybody. I promise I'll try to keep that in mind. But like, don't forget to live your life that you're also dreaming for everyone else. You're not an exception. And there's people out there fighting for you too. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
Becky said that one is very hard for her sometimes. And we can definitely relate, Becky. Definitely.
yeah. So LaDonna, strategies for dealing with stress and emotions. And I promise, as I do with every webinar, that I will take at least one and you can hold me accountable to that afterwards. They really help. That 4x4 breathing exercise in the last webinar we did, I actually do it pretty regularly and I feel so much better. I feel so much better. So I'd love to hear from you any strategies for dealing with stress and emotions during these times. And all of you in the audience, if you want to start typing in anything that works for you, if you hear LaDonna say something that's worked for you before, like give that a yes and. All right, LaDonna, take it away.
All right. So first thing I want to do is point out that if you have the handout, if you already printed it or saved it, you have all of these strategies at your fingertips right now. So the first one that I'm going to talk about, well, just overarching, we want to be mindful, right? We want to be mindful and acknowledge our feelings. So when something catches us off guard, or we hear some shocking news, or we're seeing those sensational news headlines that are meant to shock us, we acknowledge how we're feeling in that moment, right? And then some other things that we can do is journaling and meditating. One of my favorite things to do is a very simple grounding exercise. What you do is you just bring your attention to your breath, because we don't notice this, but sometimes we stop breathing, like we just hold our breath. And it was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even breathing. So it's super simple. It's just it's to ground you and to bring your attention like just back. Just be mindful about the moment that you're in. You bring your attention to your breathing and you notice the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. So it's like in and out. And like you realize that you're going in and you realize that you're letting it out. And then like if for some reason like something distracts you or your mind wanders, you bring yourself back to your breathing in and out.
And oxygen is just one of the things I've been told to convince myself of this is oxygen helps your brain function. Like when everyone's like, oh, antioxidants and blah, 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 it's because oxygen helps your brain turn back on. And it's not just breathing for breathing's sake. It's not just breathing to like feel generally good. It's literally helping your brain start working correctly again. And that kind of a framework kind of helps me be like, oh yeah, I really should do that whole breathing thing.
Right, because it helps your brain. It helps you function. Another one I mentioned journaling. I'm an avid journaler. I set challenges for myself when life is getting busy, and I was like, oh, I haven't sat down. Where I'll get up, and that's like the first thing I do in the morning, or it's the last thing I do in the evening, or is what I'm doing when I end my day. Like at work before I get in my car and leave. And a couple of like I have a whole list of journaling prompts for you for any different situation. But to get you started, some of the easiest ones when you can't think of a prompt is what are three things I'm grateful for today? Like let's focus on gratitude, let's focus on the positive. And like you're going to hear this so many times today, but we cannot focus on the things that we cannot change, right? We cannot focus on what we cannot do, the things that we cannot control. So one thing you can control is to be positive and focus on what you're grateful for. And then if like you receive some shocking news or something is happening in that moment, if you want to journal, another easy one that you can just uh, go to is what are my biggest fears related to the current climate or to this current thing that I just heard. So me as an educator, they're trying to dismantle like public ed. And so for me is what is my biggest fears for if they actually are able to dismantle public ed, right? And just get all the things out. And it's something about getting things out of your brain and onto paper. And maybe if it's something negative, you want to go burn it and you feel like really good about that. Um, but it's something about like getting it off of you where it's so heavy and it's like something that's lifted off of your chest when you're able to go through journal and write it down. All
My
right.
therapist said, name it to tame it.
Name it. Okay, name it to tame it. That's what I need to start saying because I'm saying the same thing, right? Name it to tame it. So another strategy is limiting your media consumption, right? We always are either on our computers or we're on our phone, we're scrolling, we're doing all the things. We may have the TV going while we're doing cooking dinner or in the background for background noise, all different things. Media is not safe right now. It's just not.
I'm sorry. That's me you're describing.
You
It's
felt
so hard.
felt that real bad. But it isn't safe because it's like on social media, you see the things and they're controlling like what we see now, right? On TV, on the news, the biggest headlines are the things that are the most shocking. Different blogs, if they want the clicks, so they're going to go towards what's getting the clicks right now. So we're going to hear all of the shocking and the big news that like is scary for all of us right now. So what I suggest is that you go on a media diet, right? Um, Also in the handout for you. But if you just cannot take a media break, we're gonna practice taking a media diet. And if you're scrolling in certain accounts, always trigger your anxiety. Like they're always posting the big crazy headlines and the things that we're trying to like safeguard ourselves against. Unfollow them. Just unfollow. You do not have to follow all the news outlets. Find the safe ones and follow those. I suggested to Crystal the other day is like, oh, if you want news, go find Jasmine Crockett, the U.S. Senator in Texas or something, right? I'm like, she's like the way she explains things, the way her point of view, that's a safe space for me. So even if it's like super scary, when she says what she says, I don't get super anxious after I hear her say it and her take on it. Um, and also set time limits for news consumption. So if you get all your news from Facebook or if you get all your news from TikTok, okay, I'm only gonna scroll for 30 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer, and when the timer goes off, I'm done. and have someone that you're like that holds you accountable for it. Text someone like, hey, I'm gonna start scrolling. I have 30 minutes. I'll be off in 30 minutes. And they'll text you and say, hey, are you off? And find reliable sources of information to limit your exposure to that sensationalized news. And when I say sensationalized news, it's just the ones that have those big scary headlines. They want you to click. They position it in like everything that they say is in such a way so that we can be scared. And then if you are one of those who, like one of those individuals who can just cut the cord, like, okay, I can turn my phone off for 5 hours and okay, I'm okay. I don't have to be on my computer. I can not watch TV while I cook dinner. By the way, I watch TV while I cook dinner. But if you're one of those who can do that and you're just not going to, you're going to detox. Instead of doing a diet, you're going to detox from media altogether. You can read a book. Crystal is going to have a great book list for you later, right? You can do something creative. I'm very crafty. I'm in my craft area right now. I'm super crafty. So I like to color. I like to paint. I like to create things with my hands. I've done furniture and all the different things so you can get creative. Creative. You can spend time with loved ones because I think that's most important that we spend time with loved ones. We hug them, hold them tight, because they can bring us a sense of peace in this crazy time right now. Go outside, go to the gym, do something that fills your cup. And I actually want to know what fills your cup. Can y'all just tell me in the chat, like, what do you do to fill your cup? And I want you to type that and I want you to commit to doing that at least one time in the next 7 days. So what do you do to fill your cup? And while I'm waiting on y'all to tell me what you do to fill your cup, the last thing, last but not least, I want you to focus on what you can control. What can you control? How can you make a positive impact in your community? Like, for instance, me and Crystal, we're here today having this conversation. Maybe you can have a conversation in your neighborhood. Maybe you can organize something at your community center. Maybe you can do something with your kids' school, with your church, whatever. What is something that you can do? Maybe you're only going to post positive quotes on your Instagram for the next however long so that you can be the bright spot when someone is scrolling, right? So I'm going to hop into the chat. I just want to hear what are some of these things that are filling y'all's cup. I see going for walks outside. That's one of my favorite when the weather is great. Spending time in nature, read, eat yummy food. Oh, I want to be a foodie so bad. Um, oh, snuggle sandwich with your dog. Yo, pup, pup. Moving your body, yes. And fly fishing. Oh my goodness. And I want all of you to commit to doing that at least one time within the next 7 days. And I sent y'all an email. I would love for you to respond to that email and just tell me how it went. Talk to me. I talk back now. Thank you all so much for sharing. So, Crystal, I named all these different things. Is there anything that you're doing to cope? Like, are you stepping away from social media?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
doing?
So one of the things that's really hard for me to do, I can tell other people to do it, no problem. But it's really hard for me to do is to stop that doom scrolling, right? So it feels
Mhm.
like in my brain and my heart that if I don't keep up, then something's going to happen without me. And then the other day I had this realization, like, hey, if I put my phone down for 30 minutes, there is like nothing that's going to happen in the next 30 minutes that I can stop by myself, right? Again, because I have like this like savior complex, honestly. If you met me again, you know, you know what I'm talking about. But like it feels like if I stop scrolling, I will be personally responsible for like mayhem being unleashed. But that's not true. I am one person over here. And in 30 minutes, like putting my phone down for 30 minutes to cuddle with my dog, watch Great British Baking Show, you know, cook some food or something, there's nothing that's going to happen in the next 30 minutes at like 2:30 on a Tuesday that I will have control over and be able to like stop from happening. And that kind of mentality keeps me from doom scrolling. Honestly, I have been going to my dog a lot lately, um, and trying to give him like those extra long hugs and stuff. And I've been like doing that thing where you stare into your dog's eyes for at least 20 seconds. He does not love it. But I read somewhere that helps both you and your dog. So I've been trying to do things like that, and it's just again keeping in mind that like while we try to fight these injustices and these dangers and fascism, like we cannot forget to live, because that's what they're trying to get us to do. They're trying to make it so that we cannot get like that. People like us, honestly, cannot have fun anymore and cannot go places safely and do stuff with like our chins up, and we can. Even if it's in our own house, if you're feeling like you're in danger, you are in danger, like do something that no one could take away from you. And I've been struggling, and I have been reactive on social media in the last couple weeks, and so I actually stopped posting because I realized that, especially on Inclusive Guide, I was getting away from the original intent of Inclusive Guide. So honestly, today's February 6th. If you go on Inclusive Guide Instagram, you'll see that for a while I haven't been posting like safe places, which is the original point of Inclusive Guide. And so today I realized that, and I started reaching out to businesses, and we're going to start posting safe places again, because I've just been like kind of reacting to the hate and the fear mongering that's been building up over time. And it's like they did it for a second. They won for a second because I wasn't posting safe places for a pretty long time. And so I'm going back to that and remembering that original purpose and not caving into that. Somebody just wrote, I cut out social media cold turkey in 2020, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't miss it. Granted, it's not using it as a tool for my business. Yeah, so if you don't have to be on social media, oh my gosh, you're like not really missing anything. I'll send you the cute videos, right? Like I'll send you the fun stuff. But yeah, so it feels like it sucks when there's like nothing to do and you're reading all the bad things. And once again, that's the point. So in these times of uncertainty, you have to get yourself certain, right? You have
Yeah,
to do what you can do. And just like you said, LaDonna, one of the things I can do is a webinar. Okay. This is one of the things I can do. We got to keep our energy to keep our power, right?
absolutely, absolutely. But I have a question for you.
Shoot.
So, like during these times when DEI is such a dirty word, right? It's such a dirty word. Like, why is it important for us to maintain those principles right now?
It's all we have. It's what we have to fall back on. So it's easy to be like, outspoken and, doing like hero work when times are easier. But when shit goes down, that's when you find out who's ready to fight and what you're made of and what the folks around you are made out of, right? And so there's different responses for everybody. Like not everyone's going to react the same way. Not everyone is going to go downtown to a protest. Not everyone's going to, send out newsletters with resources. Not everyone's going to read all the books. But again, if we do what feels right to us within our own value alignment, together we've done almost everything that's needed to be done. Together we can put together the puzzle pieces of the people who educate. Oh, I wanted to mention too, in media I've been focusing on fact focused news sources. So fact focused news sources, and I'm going to mention this again in a little bit, but it's really important that you avoid news sources that have analysis by someone else. And it is important that we start practicing our own methods of analysis based on our own frameworks. And that goes to the values you're talking about. You can combine historical frameworks of tyranny and fascism that we are currently experiencing, that's being opposed onto us, with frameworks of your own values. And then you should be making your own analysis. We live in a 24 hours news cycle, and it's so easy to have somebody else fill in those blanks for us. Oh, this is what I should be thinking, right? This is what I should be believing. Sure, watch Rachel Maddow.
Those
Sure.
long thought
What's
pieces,
that?
right? I
What's
said
that?
those long thought pieces that
Yeah,
people post on social media. They're an expert now.
exactly. But you're an expert too. Like you can also be an expert, but in the time you're taking in somebody else's analysis, you're not able to make your own. And your own probably has a unique spin on it that is better for your local community and your family and the people that you directly serve than somebody else who you've never met and has never been to where you are. So it's really important. I'm going to like go through a book list from Goodreads. And I'm going to put it in the chat and stuff. But it's really important that you start learning how to make your own analysis based on historical frameworks and your own values.
Oh my goodness, you say values?
I said values.
Value. So, one thing I was wondering about, like, as we were putting together the content for this webinar, is like, how do a person stay centered when values and politics clash, right? And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so powerful. Like how do we stay centered when, like you said, there's a 24-hour news cycle, and then we have all these experts online telling us kind of like what to think. So what I have is like you need to find allies like in your community and within the organization where you work, because I feel like having those allies is very like important so that you have someone that you can go to. Like it's a safe space, right? And then you need to focus on the values that are important to you. So, what are the things that are non-negotiable for you in your life? What are your values? And y'all know I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Like the wellness and the self-care, like you need to set boundaries. Saying
Mm,
no to something that doesn't serve you, it's saying yes to yourself. You may not have ever heard this before, but you teach people how to treat you. So what you allow, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, I can do that to LaDonna. So you have to set those, that's a part of setting those boundaries when someone does something or say something, or I don't know, like now, like the funny memes that are not so funny. Someone might come and put it in your face and you're like, I'm sorry, that offends me. Please, don't show me things like that because it really gives me anxiety. Like you have to like set those boundaries so that they know, okay, this is funny to me, but I'm not gonna go and show this to LaDonna because she finds it offensive. And you have to prioritize self-care. You have to do your breathing. You have to find things that fill your cup. In another way that you can like stay centered when your values and politics clash is find ways to contribute to positive change within your organization, right? I found a couple of years ago that I was like fighting with another teacher in a building on the internet. And then I have to get up every Monday through Friday and say, good morning, Mr. Moore. His name is not Moore, by the way. After we were like disagreeing about something that I just feel so passionately about on the internet. So, like, what could I have done in that moment instead of putting my energy there? And every time I see him, my skin would get hot. How could I contribute? How could I have contributed to the school in a positive way? One of those things that you can do is employee resource groups or ERGs. It's just like a voluntary group for employees who have like similar interests and experiences. This can be based on anything like women with kids or I don't know, Christians for Change or whatever your uniqueness is, whatever common interest you have. Maybe it's a group for people who like fly fishing. You see that, Erica?
There we go.
You can, but whatever you have, you come together and then y'all provide that support and a sense of community within the workspace because a lot of times we spend so much work, like we spend more time in our workplaces than we do at home sometimes because like we're at work for however many hours and then like we go and do the things and run the errands and all the things and then we get home, have dinner, do the things, and then go to bed. Like the amount of time that you're at work versus at home. So you want like all the spaces that you have to be in to be positive spaces. And like the last but not least thing is like connections and peer support. Like they are very important for your emotional and your mental well-being because when you don't feel alone, it it just helps you to have someone to lean on, someone who even if they don't agree with everything you say, they can empathize, they can understand. They can be a listening ear. Maybe you don't want advice and you just want someone to listen and that person, that safe space, it helps you to be able to listen. I mean, it helps you to be able to have that safe space. So I mean, workplaces, culture, advocating, inclusion, and equity, like all the different things. Crystal, like how can you like assess the workplace for their culture, their diversity, and being able to advocate?
Well, one of the things that since we're running a little behind, I'm going to rattle off a list of some things that folks can do in their workplace. So when you mention ERGs, employee resource groups, they're groups of folks like you said, like for women or for Black folks or people who fly fish or something. If you're at a place that is like pro DEI and is inclusive and is doubling down right now, great. Ask for more employee resource groups, start expanding, get more and more and more, because the more, even if you're not in them, like ask your supervisor, what other groups could we have that you see among our department or our whole building or our whole workforce in our organization. Ask them to make more, because the more people feel safe and welcome and included, no matter who they are, who they voted for, the more stable they're going to be, and the less like lashing out even the other folks are going to be. So getting those folks to like be able to be part of something that everybody has in common is really, really helpful, because community is one of the biggest things to be helpful in here. And so if you are in an organization that's disbanding ERGs, make your own. All right. This shit does not have to be official, people. All right. Just go and make your own. Put it on your calendar as something like, I don't know, fantasy book club or something like that. Or I don't know, literally anything. Firefighter appreciation club. I don't know, like just literally anything. Get it on your calendar. You can make your own. Like your committees don't always have to go through your boss. Like you can like just make it up, have it be unofficial, call it something else, and get it on your calendars and meet regularly anyway. And one of the other things too is to meet with your boss or your leader to get the recommitments. Make them say the words out loud. We are dedicated to making sure that we continue our ERGs. We are dedicated to making sure we follow through on our DEI principles. We are doubling down. Or get that conversation out of the way and see if they're not. Like, know where they are. The other thing to do is if the staff around you wants to move forward and is like, no, we want to double down, let your boss or supervisor know that too. They might be reacting from a place of fear themselves and be uncertain. Spoiler alert, leaders put their pants on one leg at a time too. Okay. Um, they they are also just regular people who are also scared right now. And they might need to hear that the people that work for them, or the people that they manage, want these things. So go to your leader, go to your boss, and let them know that you are all still here ready to rally around these DEI principles and the values that you worked so hard on when times weren't quite as tough and fascist. One of the other things that I want to mention, because we are running out of time and should wrap up, so I think we should get to our wrap up points. Do not obey in advance. All right. So, the book On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder is one of the books that I highly, highly recommend. Again, it's that short 90-minute-ish read. This is one of the biggest points. Do not obey in advance. If you do not have to disband your employee resource groups, don't let them go down without it being ordered to do so. Okay. Do not take DEI off your websites before you are ordered to do so. Do not take pronouns out of your signature lines unless you are ordered to do so. And if you are ordered to do so, and you need your job in order to feed your family and keep a house over your head, take those pronouns out. I'm just saying, if this was like last year, I would be like, don't think about that, but like do what you need to do to keep your job, to keep your family or your, I don't know, whoever you live with, keep yourself in place and secure so that you can live to fight another battle, right? And so if you you have to figure out which hill you're going to die on and which battles you're going to just lose to win this. I don't want to say a war. This is so sad, but come on, like like if you have to do something and it is like you have to make those choices about what you're going to stand up for and fight for and what you're not, and not every battle is worth going to war over, right? Like not everything deserves it. That is true in the rest of life, and you need to figure out where to keep your energy. But one of the most important things is to not obey in advance. Don't anticipate it, because those anticipation moments where you change something without having them tell you to, that is where fascism gets its true hold. Okay, that is where it comes in and takes hold, is when they can control you without having to say a word. All right, and
Yeah.
that is the place that we want to make sure to avoid. All right, LaDonna, I'm gonna start copying and pasting the resources into the chat while you bring home some major points.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. The big thing that we did not get to is building a support system. It's essential because when you have those strong connections, it helps you. It gets that buffer against like stress, anxiety, and loneliness, and you need that sense of belonging and support. So the biggest thing, if you take anything away from me, the wellness side of all the things, is that you need a strong support system. You need to focus on the things that you can control. You need to have those boundaries, and you need to be mindful. So at the end of the day, we're in this together. We're stronger together, and we need to focus on prioritizing ourselves, because like Crystal said, we have to put that face mask on for ourselves before we can support or help or do anything for anyone else. We need to build a community, focus on what we can control, and that'll make it easier for us to navigate these challenging times and create a more positive future.
All right, and I'm going to put this one last link to the wellness handouts. So what we're going to do is, after I'm done saying this part, we're going to stay on for a little bit longer. If anybody wants to continue the conversation without it being recorded, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes afterwards. But in the chat and below this recording or above this recording or next to the recording, I'm not sure where it's going to go, we have just put in the chat for you a link to hear about this, the next webinar series, a moment to fill in feedback form from the webinar, my links from where you can find my stuff, LaDonna's links for where you can find her stuff, anti-fascist book list, and link to the wellness handouts. And what I just want to conclude by saying is there's so many different ways to be involved and to stay involved, and you have to find the way that is right for you. Again, if going to protest in the streets is right for you, great. If it's not for you, do not waste your energy stressing over not being able to do that. Find something that you can do. If going straight up to your boss and saying like, hey, I I am believing in this and we should keep doing it. Great. If that's not for you, maybe write a letter, maybe write an email, maybe talk to a coworker and ask them if they'll do it and support them. You could ghost write it. Like there's just ways to do so many things depending on your comfort level. You don't have to be the one that's doing everything. And the most important thing of all time is community, introvert or extrovert. Find people who you connect with. Find an introvert, find another introvert who you could just like read a book next to. Or I don't know, I like to sew. I haven't sewn in a long time. Maybe that's why I'm so sad. Sew next to, if you don't want to talk about stuff. There's so many different ways to be with people, that it doesn't just have to be like a group talk where everyone word vomits their feelings. Like if that's for you, like it is for me, great. But if it's not for you, if journaling's not for you, maybe writing a sentence is for you. Maybe it's just writing a sentence instead of writing 10 pages. Maybe instead of one or instead of three things you're grateful for, it's just one. But the important thing is to do things that you can do in the way that is right for you and keep moving forward.
That's it. Keep moving forward. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we just hope that you continue to join us.
All right, LaDonna, go ahead and stop the recording. Have a great